Toggle it.
There we go. Y'all ready? All right. Would you please ask me? I'm here to take us to the Lord in prayer. Okay. All right. Sheet right there. Okay. All right. I apologize for the delay there. We had a few things we're trying to get worked out. Welcome to the House Governmental Affairs full committee meeting today. And to kick off our meeting, I'd like to ask Representative Bazemore to take us to the Lord in prayer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Father God, we do thank you, we praise you, we glorify you, we lift you up. And Lord God, we ask that you be in the midst of this committee meeting, Lord God. Lord, we ask that we speak what is pleasing and that we help each and every Georgian and bless each and every person here assembled, Lord God. Cover them in your blood. We thank you, we love you, we praise you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Representative. That was a good way to start us. Slight alterations to our agenda today. First thing we're going to do is we are removing House Bill 244. That will be pushed over to next week's meeting. There are some things getting worked out on that bill. We would like to kind of start out at the bottom of the agenda now. Welcome the good observation. Yes. We'd like to welcome Chairman Senator Matt Brass to our Governmental Affairs full committee. And Chairman Brass, please go ahead and present Senate Bill 16.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, number one, for allowing this hearing to allow me to have my bill heard early, but also thank you for to Chairman McDonald and yourself for yielding and letting me go first. But for the record, I didn't ask for that. They just offered. So I'm just wondering what it's going to cost me. However, all right. So Senate Bill 16. So current law does not allow for a bail bondsman to become an elected official with one exception. And that one exception is for school board. I had a local election in a district that myself and Representative David Huddleston shared together down in Heard County. And where a lady who does have a bail bonds company, she was not aware of the law. Many people are not aware of the law, myself included, until this happened. She was at her ACCG training just maybe a week or two before they got sworn in, and they learned of the law. And so she did not get sworn in because it would have been a misdemeanor. And at that time, when they didn't swear her in, after a certain amount of time, they had to declare a vacancy. And they are now, this is a little county of 12,000 people. They're now having to do a special election for a county commission seat, which obviously adds cost to the county. But long story short, they called the special election. They had qualifying. And I had agreed before all this took place that I would try to get this changed just for with some caveats. And so that's what this bill is on top of the exception for Board of Education, I've added county commissioner and city council and any kind of consolidated government, with the caveat that you cannot issue bail bonds in that jurisdiction or within that county. And that prevents, the county commissioner does control the sheriff's budget. The sheriff does approve bail bondsmen. So it still keeps that relationship dissected and that conflict of interest apart. And it's pretty cut and dry. It's really it's going to be in your smaller counties or just from financial purposes. If you're in a big county and you're a bail bondsman, you're probably making a lot of money in that county. You ain't gonna give up that county to run for county commission that's not paying a lot of money. So really, this is for our smaller rural counties. Again, this county in particular has about 12,000 people, so we're not talking about a large county. I have had questions around, could they use that influence in that county to potentially, influence in a separate county? And again, for me, they're not going to give up a big county. So typically they're going to be from that smaller county, and the smaller counties just don't have the leverage to be able to have that type of influence that could be concerned. So, and I think Representative Gonzalez asked me yesterday about potential issues with constituent. And again, I don't see, I think there's still going to be ethics laws in place that would protect against that. As we all know, we have potential conflicts of interest every single day, and it's, we're still allowed to run for office, and we still have rules and regulations that we have to follow. And so these people would still have to follow those. And so that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions on the part of the committee? We have one light flashing. Chairman Leverett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to thank you for bringing the bill. I experienced this as a city attorney. We had a candidate one time that this applied to. It doesn't make sense to me that that person would be precluded from running for office in the city in which he lives if he happened to be a bail bondsman in a different county, or, as long as he wasn't a bondsman in city court, it didn't seem to make any logical sense to me. So I appreciate you for bringing this.
Absolutely. And this bill, had it been done back then, they would have been fine.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. Yes, Representative Bazemore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to my friend and chairman. Thank you for bringing the bill and educating us. And at the appropriate time, I would like to ask that the bill be passed.
Okay, and seeing no further questions at this time, I will entertain that motion. Okay, we have a motion. We have a second.
I want her.
Too.
Okay, I'm assuming that was a second then. Okay, any discussion on the part of the committee? Seeing none, all in favor of the passage of Senate Bill 16, say aye. Any opposed? We did have one note. Okay, so bill passes. Be eligible for our rules committee now, and if you could have someone bring me a rules form for our rules committee, I'll be glad to sign it for you anytime, sir.
Absolutely. I'll get that to you today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank y'all.
Senator Brass, just as confirmation, and I think I know the answer to this, Representative Huddleston will be carrying it on the House floor. Correct. Okay. Thank you, sir. Okay. At this time, we're going to move on to House Bill 113. And before we get into House Bill 113, just a quick mention of a procedure. Typically, what we've tried to do with this committee is we hold testimony and have public hearing in subcommittee. This bill was heard yesterday in subcommittee. We had one member of our committee who was unable to attend yesterday and to have an opportunity to express their comments regarding the bill, and that is Representative Montahan, who is he is very sick right now, so I can't ascertain to his voice or whatever, but we are allowing him to make comment only regarding this bill via Zoom. This is not going to be a standard procedure for this committee. This is an exception, and it's only mainly because of his particular situation. And he is a member of this committee who would like to make comment regarding this bill. So just making that known, that he will not be participating from the standpoint of voting or questioning or amending in any way, but will be making comment in a few minutes. With that said, I will Turn the microphone over to Representative McDonald, Floor Leader McDonald, to present House Bill 113.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee. I bring to you today House Bill 113, which is a critical piece of legislation aimed at increasing the security of the state purchasing processes, ensuring the protection of our state's infrastructure and citizens from growing cyber threats. House 113 directs the Georgia Technology Authority, which is GTA, our state's designated cybersecurity experts, to establish and maintain an updated list of companies and products that are produced or sold by entities linked to foreign adversaries, as defined by the United States through the Secretary of Commerce. The purpose of this list is simple: to protect Georgia's state agencies, businesses, and citizens from security risks that come with foreign-made technology that poses potential threats. It will prohibit state agencies from purchasing or contracting with these entities determined to be a security risk. The list created by GTA will serve as a valuable tool for the Department of Administration, which is DOAS, and other state agencies. This list will help guide purchasing decisions to ensure that we're not inadvertently introducing cybersecurity vulnerabilities into our state systems. Why the Georgia Technology Authority because GTA already works closely with federal authorities to receive critical information about which companies, products, and technologies are flagged as security risks on a national level. For example, certain technologies like drones and Wi-Fi routers have already been flagged by the federal government due to cybersecurity risk concerns. Through House Bill 113, we empower GTA to establish this list and make it publicly available. This ensures transparency and encourages all Georgians to be vigilant in protecting themselves, their families, and their businesses from potential cyber threats. This bill strengthens security in purchasing by expanding current protections in existing code, including that which shaped by SB 346 and SB 562, which passed in 2022, sponsored by former Senator Jeff Mullis. This bill expands current protections by expanding the definition of ownership and affiliation, expanding to include protecting against additional countries considered to be foreign adversaries, taking into consideration goods themselves, in addition to companies be better equipping our state agencies to determine a company's ownership and enforce the provisions of our code to protect Georgia, and increasing the penalty for these violations. Additionally, this bill clarifies the role of DOAS in enforcement. If a company or product is found to be of concern, a fine of $250,000 or triple the entire purchase value if greater will be imposed to these foreign companies, third-party vendors, or resellers selling such goods. I want to emphasize that we've removed any specific country names from this bill and have adopted the federal definition of foreign adversaries. This allows us to remain flexible and protective as a global cybersecurity landscape continues to evolve. This also protects Georgia from litigation several other states are fighting relating to states setting their own foreign policy by naming specific countries as a function of federal government. Let me be clear, House Bill 113 does not have a retroactive component. It will only apply moving forward, ensuring that as we make future purchases decisions, we're doing so with a higher level of security in mind. In closing, House Bill 113 is about ensuring a safer, more secure Georgia. It's about taking steps now to prevent potential cyber risk threats that could compromise our state's infrastructure, our citizens, and our businesses. Today, I brought Ms. Hayes. She is the Deputy Executive Counsel for Governor Kemp, so she'll also be sitting here with me to help address any questions, and I ask for your favorable consideration.
Okay, thank you, Representative McDonald. We have a question. Representative Adesanya.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the presentation of the bill. Now, so I see why we have the need for protecting our national security. However, have you thought about the increase in cost that might lead to? Because as I look at the bill and understand it, competition with certain countries also help our local market. Banning, like, say, purchase of computers from a country, like you mentioned, as identified by federal, say China, for example, wouldn't that competition inadvertently hurt the market in Georgia?
Well, I mean, our main concern is our cybersecurity. I think that there's cost to doing business, and I really think that we're going to go off what our federal government is saying that our foreign adversaries, and we're not going to be, as I said, we're not going to be retroactive with this. We're going to be moving forward, looking at our future cybersecurity risk. So we're just kind of getting in line with our federal government.
Okay, a quick follow-up. So, given this bill, if this bill passes, we cannot buy computers from China, correct?
This is for the state. I mean, you can do whatever you want to personally.
Well, the state
Yes,
cannot.
this is only for purchasing. GTA is going to determine the cybersecurity risk and who we cannot buy from, and they will work with DOS in the purchasing of side of this. But you can do what you want to personally.
Okay, and Representative Alalие. See which, hold on.
Thank you for me to your bill. It makes sense. I think it makes sense to apply a federal standard and just a consistent definition for who a foreign adversary is, and provide some flexibility downstream as that list ebbs and flows. Just out of curiosity, which countries currently are on that list?
I've got the list right here. Those to you. This is current. This has been already established in the past administration. So we're looking at the People's Republic of China, the Republic of Cuba, the Islamic Republic of Iran, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, North Korea, the Russian Federation, and the Maduro regime of Venezuela. So that is the current foreign adversary list.
Appreciate it.
Yes,
Thank you.
sir.
Okay, Representative Burnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the bill. I just have one question. Since everywhere we go, China makes everything. So if you're in France and you buy a souvenir, it's made in China. So so that means that you could think that you're buying from one person, but you're actually buying from China. So how are we gonna make sure that that doesn't happen? Or, make sure security is in place?
Well, that's going to be done through GTA. They're going to be determining, this is only for state. This is not for the general public. I just want to make sure that everybody's clear on that. But GTA is going to determine that and work with DOAS about the purchasing of that. You want to address that?
Sure. I mean, of course, there are lots of things that are made in China, especially component parts. I mean, your iPhones are made in China, that sort of thing. I think the main issue that we're trying to address is that the company that produces the phone or the technology is a Chinese corporation or owned or controlled by the government of China, or China's just being an example, any foreign country of concern. It's less about the component parts that are in, what effectively are goods that American companies make, and more about the whole company being organized in a foreign country of concern and those goods coming to the United States and to Georgia and creating a security risk here.
Something I want to cut real quick.
Yes.
I left a public safety meeting, and I don't know who was in that, but drones was something of concern, and what happens with these drones and the purchasing of them, and it passed out of committee. So they're taking that information and using it and in some of these foreign adversary countries.
Okay, Representative Sanchez.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. I know we talked a little bit about this in subcommittee as well, and I just had a follow-up question. So I do understand that you're coming at this from the sense of cybersecurity risks and the potential dangers that brings up. So if it is a cybersecurity risk and it's a danger to us, why aren't we banning this not just for the state government, but also for businesses in Georgia?
We only can control what the state purchases, as and versus what businesses want to do for themselves. I mean, they have their own choices that they can make, and we are specifically doing this for the state government.
Thank you.
I think, that's also federal government, we're kind of going off their guidelines, and that's up to, the federal government to make some of those choices to protect. That's their number one, is to protect our borders.
Okay, Chairman Thomas?
Well, thank you, Chairman Anderson. I want to just make a general comment before I get to my question. One of the things that we studied a lot in the Technology Committee, and over this past session specifically, the Subcommittee on Artificial Intelligence, has to do with data. And I begin to tell everybody data is the new gold. And it really is. The data that is provided within our servers in the state government is absolute gold for foreign adversaries. They can use that technology. They can cause quite a bit of harm to our citizens. And I feel like we have a responsibility to protect our citizens at the state from releasing their information. And let's be honest, I mean, we're seeing more and more information gathered about people. And we need to make sure we're protecting that. So I want to just tell you, I appreciate you bringing the bill. I just want you to confirm it's very tightly scripted to government and government only. And I would tell you, I'd support the bill, and at the appropriate time, I'll make a motion.
I want to address that too, is something that we are making this list public. I said that, in my opening statement. So, our citizens in the state of Georgia will be getting that. We're going to be transparent with everybody that, you can follow the state's lead on these foreign adversary countries that are producing products.
Okay, thank you. That takes care of everybody in the room. As I had mentioned earlier, committee members, you do have on your desk in a packet a written statement from Representative Momtahan, who is a member of this committee. And at this time, Representative Momtahan, if you'd like to unmute, we will allow you to make your comments from your sick room, wherever you are.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. If y'all can hear me.
Yes.
We can.
Okay, fantastic. Well, y'all have the packet, and that is effectively what my statement is today. And I will just wanted to voice this out to you. I've been working with advocates since about 2022 on this issue, and in 2022, worked with organizations across the United States to pass model legislation. That model legislation has been passed in a very bipartisan way in states like Vermont and Maine, in Chicago. It's also been passed in states like Florida and Georgia and Texas. And so that is actually the underlying language of this bill here in House Bill 113. So I do want to express some concerns. I don't think that it is a issue that needs to hold this bill up, but I do want to bring this up to the committee. I think there is an overly narrow definition of the foreign companies of concern. So basically, this bill replaces the term scrutinized company with foreign company of concern. The new definition actually introduces what is stricter criteria that limits the number of entities to subject to the regulation. The company must be organized, incorporated, or headquartered in a foreign country of concern, and the ownership control must be directly tied to a foreign government, political party, or subdivision. And why is this problematic? Because many foreign companies evade direct ownership classification by using complex corporate structures. And under this bill, a company with significant foreign government influence, but registered in a neutral jurisdiction, may escape that regulation. The previous term that was used, that was also supported by groups like Heritage Foundation and others, used scrutinized company, as it cast a wider net and included companies with problematic operational or financial ties to adversarial foreign entities. This bill also assigns the Georgia Technology Authority the power to determine which goods or services pose security threats, and would maintain a list of concerned goods from foreign companies of concern and evaluate security risks. And the reason that's problematic is the bill does not outline objective criteria that GTA must use to determine what constitutes a security threat. It also allows some political interference. And so if you imagine you have some folks who are making a determination on what kind of technology is allowed to be used by our states, and it's really outside of a transparent framework, and that may lead to politically motivated decision making. There's no requirement for federal alignment. And so where we see in this bill, we've aligned to a federal standard, to the CFR, I think section 7.4. We're not aligning to the concerned goods that GTA is supposed to create. We're not aligning them statutorily to the CFIUS banned technologies list, which already exists. And so if we want to use a federally recognized list, then we could just as easily use a federally recognized list for banned technology. And I think that's kind of important. That's kind of important too. Another issue was the removal of the vendor self-certification. It would remove the requirement for vendors to self-certify that they are not engaged with foreign entities, and it shifts that responsibility to the state. And so prevention is more effective than reaction. The previous self-certification ensured vendors disclose any foreign ties before bidding, making enforcement easier. And state agencies may lack the capacity to adequately investigate and verify these vendors' foreign ownership statuses. And the last thing I'll say is, as we've narrowed these categories down, the penalties appear very severe on paper. You know, imposing civil penalties of $250,000 or triple the purchase value. However, the list of who actually qualifies under this new code section is few, if any, companies will actually face these sanctions, which is also kind of problematic, in my opinion, Mr. Chairman. Many foreign control firms will not meet the foreign company of concern criteria, meaning that these penalties won't apply to them. There's a lack of third-party accountability. We do not impose obligations on subcontractors. Foreign controlled entities could still enter Georgia procurement system through intermediary vendors. And previous enforcement provisions were stronger, requiring self-certification and proactive state oversight. I believe that this bill actually removes these safeguards, and I believe that it's unintentional. I believe that the author's intentions were to strengthen these, but I think we are inadvertently weakening these instead of strengthening them. And so my recommendations would be to narrow the scope of the regulated foreign companies. My recommendations here would be to make this more broad instead of as narrow as it is, and allow those previous provisions to exist, including self-certification and others. And Mr. Chairman, I do have some amendments that I've prepared. I understand that I cannot make a motion for them pursuant to House rules and committee rules, but I could share those with the committee if you'd like.
Thank you, Representative. And yes, please share those if you would like for the committee to consider those. We are going to proceed to action on this bill. Should it pass, then I would recommend getting with the chairman of our rules committee to see about the possibility of doing something there. Thank you. Representative McDonald, Floor Leader McDonald, would just because of the unusual circumstance here and this allowance, I want to give you an opportunity. Is there anything that you wanted to rebut or say anything regarding this?
No, I just want to give this committee, the reassurance that the top lawyers at GTA and DOAS and the governor's legal team, they've gotten together and they've really worked this bill to make sure it protects everything we do here on Capitol Hill. And also it producing the list. It's going to also protect the constituents you serve. So a lot has gone into this to get this bill where it is and to move it forward.
Thank you. All right. That's all the questions we've had and comments that we've had on the board today. So at this time, we'll entertain a motion. We have a motion to pass. Do we have a second? Motion and a second. Any comments? Seeing none, all in favor of passage of House Bill 113, say aye. Any opposed? Okay, I don't think we allow abstention. I think if you're present, you do need to vote on the committee rules. Okay, so we had, the ayes have it, the bill passes. As mentioned to Chairman Brass earlier, get me a form, I'll sign it, and we'll get it at the rules.
Thank you, committee. Appreciate everybody.
Thank you.
Thank y'all. Thank you for your time.
All right, next we'll have our last bill for today, and we'll have Chairman Gullett come forward to discuss House Bill 140. And again, testimony was heard yesterday in subcommittee. So Chairman Gullett will present the bill. The committee will be allowed to ask questions, and then we will move on the bill. Proceed at your pleasure, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. We have House Bill 140 before you, LC 47. Well, actually, that's the, not the sub. 1 second. Sorry. Second. Seven 3297S.
And just as confirmation, that was the committee substitute presented in subcommittee yesterday.
That's correct. Yes.
Thank you.
And this is called the In Local Taxation by Citation Act. What this bill does is it takes the revenue generated from fines, both criminal and civil, that cities, municipalities collect, and it caps it at 10%. And so once a city has gone over or collected more than 10%, then that money would then go to the state. And so let me tell you a little bit about why I'm trying to do that. And then the effective date of January 1st, 2026 is a little bit, it's a long runway, year and a half runway. Well, it's 1 year runway of time when we did the bill. What the goal is we have a number of cities who are funding their government through citations. One of the worst, 59.09% of their government funding comes through citations. This bill would effectively, would affect about 37 cities, I think is what GMA testified to yesterday. And I think it's really a couple of things. The reason I'm doing it is, one, the relationship between law enforcement and our community is really important. And when people get tickets, they want to know that it was about them speeding, and it wasn't about speed traps. It wasn't about financial gain of the city. And so this is what this is going to address, hopefully, is build that relationship between the community and the people, so that cities are funding their government the right way and not funding it and motivated through tickets and citations. Additionally, when you do that, the relationship between the community and our public safety is going to grow. It's going to continue to improve, and I think we'll see a lot of trust being built between the relationship, between the community and law enforcement, which is really ultimately the goal. Additionally, I would say that it wasn't too terribly long ago in our history that only state troopers could run radar. There was a reason for that. State troopers, wherever they're at, that they write a citation is where the funding goes. But there's no motivation, no financial motivation for them to do that. In South Georgia, there's a number of sheriffs who were elected that said, "I will never run radar," years ago. Most of them probably have radar now, but that's something that's a privilege. And it can be removed. It actually has been removed of a city here in Georgia not too long ago for 6 months. So if you're funding your government at 60% and you get your radar removed, how do you continue to fund your government if you're so reliant on those tickets? And so this is what this is going to address, and happy to answer any questions related to it.
Okay, we have a few questions. First of all, Representative Adesanya.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the bill. I personally see, common sense in the bill. It makes sense in some ways. But to your last point, we have cities like City of Lenox who generates over 79% from fines and forfeiture. I mean, it shouldn't be that way. But as I think about how you present the bill and what this bill will do, where do you think like cities like Lenox, Warwick, Oliver, where will they make the difference from? How will they survive? Because they fund initiatives like police department from the fines. If we cap them at 10%, where is the makeup coming from?
Well, I think, they have opportunities to make up. One, they can lower their budgets, that they don't have to make it up. Two, they can have a property tax. They can do sales tax receipts. There's other ways to fund their government besides tickets. And so, and really, I think that's the principle. What I'm trying to get at is I don't think that that's right to fund your government through citations. That is an added benefit of, providing public safety. And this isn't going to stop them from writing tickets. So public safety is still the number one focus of the police departments. But what this will stop them from doing is funding their government through that way. And I just think maybe principally, I don't think that's right. And so that's kind of where I'm at on that.
If quick follow-up.
Sure.
But it caps it at 10%, right? Regardless of law enforcement, it caps all of the money they can receive from fines and forfeiture to 10%, correct?
10% of the entire city budget. Yeah.
I mean, I like the bill. I just think smaller cities who, barely can make money will struggle.
Yeah. But what's happening is there's a motivation for cities. So initially we had counties and there, and sheriffs. So sheriffs are elected, and so one, the people hold that person accountable. Two, counties don't really move. We don't shift boundaries of counties, but we do shift boundaries, especially in even this committee, annexation. And so I think we found a number of cities who annex into locations, especially around interstates and heavily traveled highways. That wasn't their problem. That has become their problem. So they annexed through. I know one city annexed 4 miles through woods to get to an interstate. And so there's a motivation. What is that? If the interstate wasn't in your city, why did you annex into that city and say it's about public safety? It is once you've annexed in it, but it wasn't prior to that. It really was about financial gain.
Okay, Representative Burnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I understand what you're saying. However, where are some of these cities at? Are they in rural Georgia or, where are they located at that the police are making all their money off of pulling people over?
Yes, there's a number in rural Georgia for sure. The bigger city you are, city of Atlanta is never going to make this cap, right? 10% of I don't know how big the budget of city of Atlanta is, but it's huge. And so they could probably never make this cap. It's typically smaller cities. And oftentimes those cities are in areas, but there's some cities who aren't. I wouldn't consider rural, a couple suburban cities here too, as well.
Okay, my dad was a police officer, so I'm clear on that part. I just don't know if that's this is something, because then what's going to be next? So we're going to stop them from writing tickets. Then they're going to raise taxes.
We're not stopping them from writing tickets. So that's exactly the exact opposite of the premise of what I'm trying to do. You can continue to write tickets. It's not stopping anyone from writing a ticket. I hope that they continue to write tickets because it is about public safety. And tickets are about public safety, but it's removing the financial gain from writing tickets. It's I'm funding my entire city through tickets. That's the wrong behavior in my mind. But you can still write tickets. You don't monetarily benefit from that. So it doesn't stop you from writing a ticket. And if public safety, that's the motivation of law enforcement, it should be about public safety. It shouldn't be about financial gain.
Okay, thank you. And Representative Olalier.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative, thank you for bringing us this bill. I support the intent of the bill. I think it places some necessary guardrails against any perverse incentive to weaponize, right, those citations. I'm going to support the bill. I was curious, line 17, you reference an exception. What is that exception? Except as provided for, and it Oh, that's the actual code section. Never mind. Well, question answered.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Representative Oliver.
I apologize for missing the subcommittee meeting yesterday, and you may have said this and I wasn't paying attention enough. Is GMA opposing this bill?
I don't know if I heard opposed. They had some suggestions of changes that they want. They can correct me. I'm not sure to hide something. They did testify that there's some changes that they want, but they don't want bad actors to continue to,
There
Right.
is a formula that public safety uses to determine whether or not a city can lose its authority to issue tickets. And that formula is based on correcting and enforcing or doing away with speed traps.
Right.
Any of these 49 cities on your list lost their authority to give tickets based on that formula?
Yeah, one has recently.
1 out of 49?
37. Well, I think 37 that would be applicable. I think a few. I don't know if they come out with the investigation, like if they don't remove it, if you hear about it. I don't know how many have been investigated. But the reality is that the speed trap law is important. But you can write tickets for speeding, so super speeders not included in that. Too fast for conditions is not included in that. So if you don't, actually write it for speeding, and then a lot of times you go to court and they plea it down. Hey, pay this fine. We'll say it was whatever. So it doesn't really give you a clear picture. How many speeding tickets are actually adjudicated as a speeding ticket.
You offered 3 states, other states that had passed a similar kind of law, but 2 of them had 20 and 25% of the budget. Was one of the GMA's suggestion that you raise the percentage?
It was.
Okay. Are you amenable to that discussion? Are you opposed raising the percentage?
At the will of the committee, that's not something, this is a good starting point. I don't think the world has collapsed in Alabama who did 10%. And so that's where I started. I think ultimately I said, this is not a goal for the state doesn't need the money. This is not a state grab of money. I think GMA offered an idea as far as where the money should go, and I'm supportive of that. How we get that there. I'm not sure if their amendment does that or not, talking to legislative council, but, am I like a hard line on 10%? No, I think that's probably a pretty good number, but, I'm at the will of the committee.
Is it only 3 states that have passed this? I just wonder.
I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I know of one particular that I researched was Alabama. That was last year.
Not to take time the committee later, let me just say briefly a comment. I speed almost every time I get in my car, and I think everybody in this room, I don't think anybody in this room can deny that. At least once a week, if not every day. And the danger that we cause in our society based on speeding is tremendous.
Sure, I
It
agree.
is the number 1 cause of death in highway accidents. And if they're not breaking our speed law, our enforcement of speed trap law, I'd like to know where that range really is in terms of cities violating their authorities.
Yeah, and again, I'm not advocating in any way that the police shouldn't be doing what they're doing. I just don't want it to be about finances. I don't want it to be about, and there are a number of, I think there are a number of people, of officers and that have reached out to me saying, it's not just the quota. The quota is always like, you need to go earn your pay today. And what that translates to. And so what the motivation should be about safety, 100%, but it shouldn't be about funding your government. It's just a difference. And I think that's an underlying,
I just think it's a hard argument to make that I'm a victim when I get caught for speeding. I think
but it's not just speeding here. I mean, that's primary. That's probably most of the tickets, but it's not just speeding. It's really about profiting, having your city funded through citations. And I don't think, do you believe that's the proper role of is that the proper way to fund a government? I'm not sure. I don't, I guess really that's what we're deciding here.
Thank you. And next, Representative Williams.
Thank you. So my question is a couple of logistical questions. So, who's in charge of monitoring and seeing when cities go over the 10%?
The city.
No, I mean, who's going to monitor the cities? Like who's going to keep a list of cities and determine when different cities go over the 10%?
So, I mean, it's not an invoice that gets sent out by the state saying you owe us this money. It's a self-reporting of over 10%. This goes to the state. So the cities themselves, and I think budgets are published. So, a number of the cities who are the worst off haven't actually published their budgets to the Vincent, to Carl Vincent Institute like they should. If you go look at their budgets.
So it'll be dependent upon the city's self-reporting of their budgets.
Yeah.
And are cities required to report their budgets to somewhere in the state?
I think the Carl Vincent Institute, I believe that they're supposed to publish their budgets there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And next, Chairman Saines. Whoops, hold on. There we go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chairman, for bringing this. Would you not agree in terms of when we talk about public safety that the most dangerous time for both law enforcement and often for the motorist being temporarily detained, but for sure the most dangerous time for a law enforcement officer in the function of his duties is during a regular traffic stop? That is the highest incident in Georgia and mostly nationally in terms of incidents of death and injury for law enforcement officers.
That's correct.
So I appreciate the policy intent of making sure that our cities are motivated by the public safety angle versus anything else. My concern with the bill in terms of the 10%, and we don't do municipal finance, and I'm not sure how high that bar is. I understand it. There's some parallels with other states, but I'm thinking of a community in my district whose population doesn't necessarily correlate with the level of traffic going through it. So, a city with a major highway thoroughfare would likely have more incidents of traffic law violation versus a population that correlate to the revenue it intakes and other means. So has there been some thought by the author of the stakeholders that you've dealt with that have addressed an unintentional consequence of limiting some proper enforcement just based on the makeup of their revenue portfolio?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really a big component of what we're trying to do. So are all cities bad? Absolutely not. Like that's, are there cities who are bad? Yes, there are. And just because you're on that list doesn't mean you're not doing the right things. I've talked to a couple of city managers who are in that, in that situation. They feel like they're doing the right thing. But at the same time, you also have a number of cities who are annexing in to have that opportunity for traffic stops. So like because of the financial gain. So how do you stop that? Like if those cities, did the highway get built through the city, or did that city say, hey, there's a big beautiful highway out there and see dollar signs and annex into it to capture that traffic? And so that's kind of where we're at on deciding this.
Can I ask a follow-up question, Mr. Chairman? I think we've noted, and I know the speakers had a great interest in increasing the number of our state patrol. We're vastly inadequate correlated to other states and based on our population.
Right.
Do you have an opinion on it necessarily being a bad thing that we're incentivizing local enforcement, given that they do the majority of our traffic enforcement in this state, given that we're already under-resourced on a state agency level? Wouldn't we want accurate representation of enforcement from local law enforcement? Is that necessarily a bad thing that they're making this decision?
No, I don't think so. And I don't think this changes their ability to write tickets still, which would still be enforcement. It just changes the motivation behind it, or the appearance of the motivation behind it. So I hope that they continue to write tickets. This is not an anti-stop writing tickets campaign. This is just make sure we're not funding our governments through tickets.
I appreciate the intent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just we've debated this yesterday fairly thoroughly. We've had a lot of discussions today. We've got a few lights flashing now. We're going to take those. Anybody has questions, we'll hold them till offline. But we're going to go through these last few questions here and try to get this taken care of.
Sure.
Next, we're going to move to Representative Bazemore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your presentation. Mr. Chair, since this was a presentation in the subcommittee and some heard from GMA in the subcommittee, but all of us haven't, is there a possibility that we can hear what they are working on or what they have objections to?
At this point, I would say that testimony was held in subcommittee yesterday. It was found adequate and passed out of subcommittee to proceed to the full committee today. I think the chairman who presented the bill has expressed his interest in working with them between here and the next step in this process if there's something that comes up there. So we'll forget
So
that.
they're working on it. This is not going to be the final bill?
That's entirely up to the carrier of the bill and the chairman at the next level. So. Thank you. Next, we'll move to Representative Adesanya.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So look, I was looking, and when I look at the top 10 cities that makes bulk of their revenue from fines and forfeitures, it turns out to be that 7 out of 10 are African American cities. Now, as I think through this bill, they're not necessarily imposing fines on people living in the city. So, for example, if I go out and drive to say, for example, city of Rocky Ford, and I'm, driving too fast, we don't want the city to have a sort of rule where they're limited to how much fines they can get. And I think if this bill passes through, that's going to hinder that. And as I look at that too, you mentioned earlier, they can raise property taxes to pivot and generate money from that. I think it's hindering the citizens of those cities because now they, rather than having a chance of, getting a fine from me who does not live in that city, to now imposing the fines on those small cities who evidently they're rural and not that wealthy. I think I like the intent. I like a bulk of it, but I think it also put a strain on those cities, and I'm empathetic for how they will survive.
Sure. I mean, thank you for your thoughts. I think a number of people testified yesterday who've been caught up in situations that would say they hope that you're empathetic to what they've gone through as well.
Thank you. And we're going to go to Chairman Lumsden.
Yes, have one question, a couple of comments. Isn't it true that if you impose this is more likely to cause the resources that each of the cities might have, it's going to cause them to want to divert those resources in some other ways, like community policing instead of interstate policing?
I believe that to be true, yes.
All right. And in 30 years of traffic law enforcement, I have found that there's only 2 types of us when it comes to speeding. It's the caught and the uncaught. And
I agree.
And the other thing that I would mention as it relates to the quota issue, I'm sure it's still true today, but they did away with quotas years ago. They'll let us ride as many as we want to.
Point taken.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, we've got, I'm going to let Representative Alalие make a comment or ask a question, and then we're going to close it out with Vice Chairman Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative, quickly, I'm trying to understand the extent of the number of cities that would be harmed by this. Did you say that 37 cities currently are at or above that 10% threshold? Or do we have a head count of how many municipalities are at or above that line?
Yeah. So I would just change harmed is not the way I would word it. They're not harmed by this, but 37 locations are what GMA gave me on a spreadsheet. So they gave pretty much every city in county. A few of them are towns. There's a couple of counties in there that aren't caught up in this with the substitute, but 37 was the number they gave.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, Chairman Thomas.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman Anderson. I would chair the subcommittee on this yesterday, and I just want to let everybody know this did pass out of subcommittee unanimously. And I felt everybody was we had some strong testimony yesterday. One gentleman said this was the first Republican bill he ever would have voted for. So I feel like we definitely touched both sides of the spectrum on this bill. And at the proper time, Mr. Chairman, I'll motion to pass.
Okay, this is the proper time. So we have a motion to pass. Do we have a second? We have a second. Any discussion? Yes, Representative Oliver.
I'd like to make an amendment, offer an amendment, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we have a motion for an amendment. What is the amendment you would motion?
I suggest that we amend the substitute 473297S on line 26 to raise the 10% to 20%.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on to amend. And what line was that? I apologize.
Line
Right.
26.
26. To raise that to 20%. A motion and a second. First, before we go to discussion on the committee, I would refer to the author. Is this something you would like to make any comments on before we have discussion in the committee?
No, I mean, this is, I'm at the will of the committee, so it's fine.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the amendment. Do we have any comments within the committee? Seeing none, we'll take a vote on the amendment at this point, and that is to amend line 26 to go from 10% to 20%. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay, let's do a hand count if we can. All in favor, raise your hand.
It's lost all our public votes.
Seven. Okay, all opposed?
Let's work together, as he said today, Mr. Harshaw.
Okay, the motion for the amendment fails. Now we are back to the original motion on the bill as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay, the ayes have it. The bill passes. Representative or Chairman Gullett, just bring your committee form for rules to me and I'll get it signed as soon as available.
Thank you.
And thank you. Thank you, committee. We stand adjourned.
Speeding.